Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS, coming off a solid weekend, man. Solid college football weekend, unbelievable NFL weekend. Hopefully the positivity continues. Got a big one here. Georgia, Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Let's go.
Welcome to the SWUS. The SWUS. SWUS. Hey, get the SWUS.
All right, like I said, we got Georgia on the road in Tuscaloosa for this one. Alabama short home dogs. Looks like they're catching 1.5 or 2.5, depending on your sports book. This line's been bouncing around a little bit. Total sitting at 48.5. Let's start by looking at the matchup history. We know what everybody in Georgia is thinking. Thank God Nick Saban is gone because he owned Kirby Smart. Alabama 6-1 straight up in their last 7 matchups against Georgia. 4-3 against the spread. So no question, Georgia has dominated everyone in the FBS except Alabama. But this is a new era of Alabama football. Nick Saban is no longer the head coach. Last time these two teams met, SEC championship last year, Alabama got them. 27-24 was the final score. Both quarterbacks played well. Jalen Milroe didn't drop back to pass a ton, 13 of 23, but made some big plays. 192 yards, 2 touchdowns, a passer rating over 155. Carson Beck played well also. 21 of 29, 243 yards, a passer rating over 142. So both these quarterbacks played well in the SEC championship game last year, but we're not interested in last year. We're looking at this year's matchup. So how are these teams looking this season? Well, Georgia's offense looks great. They're 4th in OFEI. I realized that it didn't look that great last week, and we'll talk about that in a second. But they're still sitting 4th in OFEI, 28th in yards per play, 44th in yards per carry, 45th in yards per attempt. Some advanced metrics, 36th in effective rush, 5th in effective pass. Carson Beck's having himself a solid season. Some people say this is the possible first overall pick in the NFL draft. I don't know if I agree with that, but 680 yards, 8.3 yards per attempt, 7 touchdowns, no picks. Look at the big-time throw rate on the right side of this graphic, sitting at a D. Hasn't been asked to throw the ball down the field a ton yet, but as a whole, I mean, Carson Beck having himself a solid season until last game. And it's not that he was terrible last game. He just wasn't good. The whole Georgia offense wasn't good. First 2 games, Carson Beck was completing over 70% of his passes, 520 yards, 7 touchdowns, passer rating at 190. Last week, which coincidentally happened to be the only road game on the schedule so far this season, Carson Beck, 62.5% completions, 160 yards, 118.5 passer rating. Now, for some reason, Stoops is always able to give Kirby Smart's offense some problems. They blew him out once, but if you look at the last few game logs of Georgia against Kentucky, they do struggle to score against Kentucky's defense. And Kentucky, although this is not their year, they still do have a talented defense, and they usually have a talented defense. So we shouldn't go into panic mode about this. But that game was just ugly. I mean, Georgia actually got outgained in that game, 284 total yards to 262. Georgia had 160 passing, 102 rushing. So, yeah, I mean, ugly game. Georgia got the win on the road. Some people are saying it was a look-ahead spot with Alabama on deck. We should draw some concern from this. It's the only road game we've seen from Georgia this year, but we shouldn't go into all-out panic mode. This is Georgia. Like I said, Stoops has shown us he can give Kirby Smart problems. This isn't anything new. But how do they match up against Alabama's defense? And they're going to be... I mean, this might be the best defense in the country. 1st in DFEI, 1st in yards per pass attempt, 2nd in pass defense success rate, 2nd in effective pass. They're 3rd in overall yards per play allowed. Alabama's defense looks official, and what makes it even more impressive, look at who they played. It's not like they played nobody. Western Kentucky, South Florida, and Wisconsin. All 3, well, the first 2 programs on this list here are offensive programs. Western Kentucky has a good offense. Same goes for South Florida. So to be putting up these video game defensive numbers against that schedule, yeah, I think it's safe to say we have to chalk Alabama up as a top 3 defense in the country, at least at this point in the season. The main matchup is going to be right here. This Alabama pass rush looks to be probably top 3. I mean, this might be the best pass rush in the country here. Honestly, Georgia's right up there with them. Alabama's defensive front, 1st in pass rush win rate. So they're coming. This is an elite pass rush, but this is Georgia. This offensive line might be the best in the country in terms of pass protection. You could probably put LSU in there as well. But this is an elite pass protection. So this Alabama pass rush looks to be the best in the country, but they're up against the best in the country. I don't know if they're going to be able to get to Carson Beck with this offensive line. And that's a huge factor in this matchup because Carson Beck is actually struggling a little bit handling pressure so far this season. QB rating takes a dip. Yards per attempt goes way down. Now, it's only been 3 games, and 1 was against an FCS program, so I don't. My spreadsheets don't include the FCS games, so it's only been 2 games. Clemson and Kentucky. If you look at his numbers last year, he actually did a pretty solid job handling pressure. So not going to panic to these numbers either. 2 games, both, I mean, 1 against Clemson and 1 against Kentucky, 2 solid defensive programs. So as a whole, I think Carson Beck will handle the Alabama pass rush pretty well. To me, the bigger question is right here. Alabama's going to come into this game running some man coverage. They're 27th in the country in man coverage frequency. The reason that's significant, Georgia has barely seen any man coverage this year so far. Now, you look at these metrics, it looks like they're terrible against man coverage. It's just that they haven't seen any. Clemson ran basically all zone coverage in that week 1 opener, and then Kentucky ran a ton of zone against them last week as well. If you look at the Georgia wide receivers versus coverage concept numbers, the Georgia wide receivers have like 17 total targets on the season against man coverage. They've seen nothing but zone. Now they're going on the road to Tuscaloosa. Alabama's going to run a shitload of man coverage. We'll have to see how they react. I mean, based on what we saw last year, Georgia's capable of beating man coverage at an elite level. But they had Brock Bowers. They had McConkey. It was a little bit of a different Georgia offense in terms of weapons. I personally think they'll be fine, but it's definitely something to talk about. Now, what about the other side? Let's talk about the Alabama offense here, and it's looking pretty good, man. They're 9th in OFEI, 13th in yards per play, 14th in yards per carry, 10th in yards per pass attempt. They're averaging over 48 points per game. I guess that's pretty good. Averaging over 48 points per game, over 10 yards per pass attempt. We just covered that. They have a plus 121 as far as points scored this year. So, yeah, they're looking pretty strong. Jalen Milroe, 590 yards, 8 passing touchdowns on the season. Here's the only pushback on the Alabama offense. Now, I'm a Milroe guy. If you go watch last year, I'm a fan of Milroe. I think he's nice. I will say Alabama's offense hasn't nearly been tested at the same level their defense has, meaning I just gave Western Kentucky and South Florida's offenses props, right? When we were talking about the Alabama defense and who they've played, I will not give Western Kentucky and South Florida's defense the same props. Those are both offensive programs right now. So I give Alabama's defense credit for shutting their offense down, but I will not give Alabama's offense credit for moving the ball on Western Kentucky and South Florida. I'm not throwing them a parade for that. And even Wisconsin, I think those numbers are a little inflated. That Wisconsin defense under Fickle doesn't look to be the same type of Wisconsin defense we've known in years past. So I'm willing to go out on a limb and say Alabama's offense hasn't been tested much. Well, get ready for it because it's coming right now. Georgia's defense this year is allowing 6 points per game, just 236 yards of offense per game. We saw them shut Clemson down. They held Clemson to 3 points and 188 total yards. Clemson's offense since then has scored 125 points and over 1,200 yards they've accumulated in the last 2 weeks. They held that offense to 3 points. 3. This Georgia defense is a problem. They're rated 1st in DFEI. I said earlier that I thought Alabama might be the best defense in the country. It's probably Georgia, or at least it's looking like it. 4th in yards per play, 24th in yards per carry, 8th in yards per pass attempt. And what makes these numbers even crazier, like I said earlier, my spreadsheets don't include the FCS games. So these numbers you're looking at right here from the Georgia defense, that's the Clemson game and the Kentucky game. So that's 2 games, both against formidable programs. And they're 1st in DFEI. Well, DFEI is schedule adjusted, but 4th in the country in yards per play against Clemson and Kentucky. And just like the Alabama defense, Georgia's defensive front is looking extremely strong in the pass rush department as well. 9th in pass rush win rate, 14th in pressure rate, 18th in pass rush grade. And what has been Alabama's weakness for 2 years now? Protecting Milroe. They're 95th in sack rate allowed, 82nd in hurry rate allowed, 72nd in pressure rate allowed. Pass protection has been an issue for Alabama, and like I said, that dates back to last season. Now, let's give some credit to Jalen Milroe, looking like he's handling pressure a lot better this year. Last year, he struggled with it a little bit. I mean, this year, he's actually putting up some really nice numbers when pressured. But like I said earlier, I mean, Western Kentucky's pass rush, South Florida's pass rush, Wisconsin, okay, but I mean, he hasn't seen a legitimate pass rush. This is the Georgia Bulldogs defense. This is a defense that has not allowed a single touchdown yet. Has not allowed a touchdown, this defense. They played Clemson and Kentucky. So, yeah, Milrose in for it here. As far as the bet, I took the Bulldogs. I got the money line at -125, which probably, I mean, I really don't know what the market's going to do here. We might be able to get a better number later in the week. I was just like, whatever, I'll bet it now. So maybe I got the worst of the number. I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't really care. The Nick Saban era is over. I don't think Alabama owns Georgia anymore. I feel like I'm getting the much better team here. Give me the dogs. Georgia money line. If you'd like to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. Also, when you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, you get access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 on one of these trophies. Go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested, head over to the website and sign up. Live show Saturday morning, 10 a.m. up to kickoff. We'll go through every single game on the board, and then NFL Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. up to kickoff. So if you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a nice college football week 5. Last weekend was good to me. Hopefully we get another one of those. But yeah, remember to bet responsibly, and I'll talk to you in the Discord if you need me.